right?
Yeah. So I'm with Carl Verheyen,
There it is.
of the famous band Supertramp, and you're just a general amazing session musician in LA. And you're from Santa Monica originally, correct?
Yeah, I was born there. I grew up in Pasadena.
Okay.
Had David Lee Roth in a couple of my classes and played across the Van Halen brothers, in various little clubs in Pasadena City College and everything. So I'm from that period and area.
Okay. When did you start teaching?
Well, I mean, I started playing at 11.
Yeah.
And, I was probably teaching lessons by about 15, 14 or 15. There was a thing in my town called the Youth House, and they said, you want to teach guitar lessons for $5 a lesson, half hour. And that was big money for a kid. I think my mom had to drive, but I rode my bike there with a guitar. And sometimes mom or dad drove me there, and I teach for a few hours after school. So it was fun. My band also played there as, we were children. And it's funny because I just played in at the Triple Door up in Seattle. We had a good 350 people come to see us. And one of the guys in the front row was the bass player from that grade school band in high school, early high school band. So it was cool to see him.
I've actually played there in I guess like the front room.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, is there a
Like
front? Yeah, there is a front room upstairs there. Yeah.
much smaller bar, but
Mhm.
one of the actually the only place I've ever played in Seattle. Um,
Yeah. Cool.
yeah, so let's go from the start. So you started playing guitar at 11. Who got you into it?
I mean, there's two major influence, maybe three. The first thing, living in Los Angeles, when you came home from school in the seventh grade or sixth grade, and they had these surf shows on TV, and they just half an hour shows on the local station that just showed guys surfing, and they played surf music real, constant. And so it must have been the Ventures and the Safaris and all those kinds of instrumental surf bands. And I was really attracted to that reverby guitar Stratocaster, sound. And then a little bit later down the road, there was of course the Beatles, and George Harrison just blew me away, and kind of still does to this day. Some of his solos really jump out of the radio. Like there's one on a song called "I Don't Want to Spoil the Party," and for us Americans, it was on Beatles 6. Check that solo out. It's right out of Chet Atkins, Carl Perkins, that kind of double stop playing. And then I really, really got into the Byrds and Roger McGuinn, and the electric 12 string just, jumps out of the radio as well. And so, yeah, I got a lot of different influences early on. And then of course the whole British invasion. And then when you finally come around to hearing people like Eric Clapton playing in Cream, you realize, wow, there's a whole virtuoso level to this style of rock guitar. And it's much different than the folk guys and the accompanying a vocalist type of thing. So that was cool. It was fun to see like people like Hendrix and Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton come along and really elevate it. And you want me to keep going?
Did you did so? I want to go back. So how did you get your first guitar?
My grandmother gave me a guitar
All right.
on my 11th birthday, and my parents gave me a lesson later that day, which was
Uh,
great.
Okay, and then you were just hooked.
I was hooked, yeah. And I took lessons from this guy named John Merrill, who was in a band called the Peanut Butter Conspiracy. And he was just the coolest guy because not only did he have an album out with his picture on it, the Peanut Butter Conspiracy, like LA psychedelic band, he also had an upright piano in his bedroom, which I just thought, how cool is that? So,
You were just
anyway,
attracted to the whole musician thing.
yeah, I was really into it for sure. So anyway, so trying to
So
get the light better here.
oh yeah. So then I just want to kind of go the progression. So did you first start playing in bands, or were you just like kind of just studying for those first formative years?
The real early years, just trying to learn songs, and I then formed a band with this drummer around the corner, and we had a stupid bass player who didn't really care what notes he played until I showed him. And then
What was
around
the
around
band
high
called?
school, Huh?
What was the band called? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but the first real band I was in was right after that, and it was called Colossus. And we had business cards printed up, and we played a lot of high school dances and stuff, which was cool. And we were just freshmen, sophomores, so it was great playing these proms and everything. So we were doing the hip tunes of the day, like Cream and Creedence Clearwater and the Kinks and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty neat. And I had no idea about tone or anything. Then I joined a band called Mad Shadow right after high school. And in that band was a wonderful guitar player named Jeff Taylor, who actually passed away on Thanksgiving about 4 years ago. But he was the first guy to come along and say, "Hey, man, you should get some real frets on this guitar. These things are so worn out. Get a fret job." And I go, "They can do that? No idea." And he goes, "Man, you should cut your nails. How can you possibly bend notes with fingernails that long?" And I go, "Really?" So he was the guy that kind of jumped my whole groove up a couple of notches, which was really neat. A
At this
great.
point, were you still using the same guitar? Probably.
Well, I didn't even own an electric guitar. I was borrowing one from around the corner until that guy's dad finally said, "Get your own electric guitar."
Yeah, you're
Slammed
using
the
this a
door in
little
my
too
face.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was borrowing it every weekend for a couple of nights, and um, but then I got a job when I was my parents went out to dinner in this restaurant in Pasadena called the Sawmill. And as we're walking out, we pass by the bar and there's a guy singing and playing acoustic guitar. And I said, "Hey, I could probably do that." So I went up to a waitress and said, "Who do I talk to get a gig here?" And I'm only 17, but she said, "Come by tomorrow. The manager's here." So I came by, played for him. He goes, "You're hired for Mondays and Tuesdays. You are 18, aren't you?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Sorry, you can't work in a bar till you're 18. Come back when you turn 18," which was going to be like 3 months down the road. So I did come back on my 18th birthday, and he hired me. So I started playing 2 nights a week, which moved into 5 nights a week. And I was doing songs like Joni Mitchell and Jackson Browne and Van Morrison, and just singing and playing acoustic. And the next thing that kind of the next like life-changing thing that happened was this guy came in, and let me see, I could probably show you really easily. This guitar isn't plugged in, but you could probably see. This guy came in and he said, "Kid, I like the way you play. If you ever want to get together and jam sometime, I'd be into it." And he was much older. He was probably, I'm 18, so he's probably in his 40s or something. So I go over to his house and he pulls out some music and puts it in front of me. And the first chord was an F major seventh, which I knew, right? So I played that. The second chord I'd never seen before. It was a D minor 7 flat 5. So I said, "Well, here's D minor 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that it?" And he goes, "Yeah, but you should voice it like that." Of course, this is a richer voicing. Sometimes it's nice to use the open string. You can put the flat 5 on top. That's really cool. You can put the flat 5 on the bottom. A lot of people like the 7th on top or the 7th on the bottom. Of course, this is probably my favorite voicing right here. Of course, you can play this voicing with the root on top, or maybe the flat 5 on top like that. You can do like smaller voicings like this that don't have a root at all, or maybe catch the root with your thumb. This is a nice voicing. Of course, this is also an F minor 6. So every place I have F minor 6, my brain just went, because here's a chord I'd never seen before. And he's showing me like 20 voicings for it, And so I thought I was good already. How you have that sort of youthful ego or whatever. I thought I was a hot shot. Here I'm just looking over this wall at 1,000 things I don't know. This huge plateau of stuff I had no idea. So in the 70s, I really started down this long, dark highway of jazz where I practiced and practiced and practiced. I tried learning tunes. I learned my scales. I learned how to improvise over chords. I probably learned about 250 songs. I took lessons, and I spent the whole decade, not decade, but maybe 5 years with these blinders on, listening to Wes Montgomery and Pat Metheny and Grant Green and Pat Martino and all these jazz guys. And I played wide body guitars instead of thin guitars. Instead of solid body guitars, I played hollow bodies. And I got all these jazz gigs, and I went to Berklee College of Music for a while, and just one semester, but I studied real hard. And that was good because I learned all that.
What made you kind of to drop out of it?
What made me leave that, you mean?
Yeah, we'll call it leave.
Yeah. When I was driving in my car down here in LA, and I know exactly where it happened, the corner of Laurel Canyon and Riverside Drive. And I'm just driving, punching through the radio stations, right, as you do. And I came across this Joe Walsh guitar solo in a tune called Those Shoes by the Eagles. And it was mind-blowing because I had to pull over. And if you ever check out Those Shoes, he does this awesome solo in E minor, which is just so guttural and so heartfelt. And I think he's using the talk box, and the way it ends is just so insane. And I literally pulled over and went, man, the state of rock guitar has really advanced since I left off in the early 70s with, Aerosmith were coming around. I was thinking, yeah, the Aerosmith's great, good feel, good groove, love the guitar player, but it's kind of Rolling Stones-ish. I've heard that. I need a challenge. And so I got, into learning jazz standards and difficult heads and difficult chord changes. But when I heard this Joe Walsh solo in one key, basically E minor, I just went, man, I need to learn everything I dig, not just jazz. So at that moment, my life really changed, and I got into country music. I got into bluegrass. I got into heavy metal. I got back into blues. I got into, back into folk music and finger picking, Chet Atkins and Lenny Breau, and fusion guitar, rock guitar, just everything. And it really suited my move. I was living down in Orange County, and it suited this move that I did up to the LA area, because I was the king of the scene down there. I had all the jazz gigs I wanted. I had all the studio gigs and stuff. But LA was the big pond, and I was the really little fish. But learning all that stuff, listening to Albert King and studying how he phrases, and then the next week listening to Albert Lee, the country player, learning how he phrases, all that stuff really made my, I look at music business as sort of this pie. And I should say the studio business, and even the guitarist for hire business, and definitely the drummer for hire business. If you can play rockabilly guitar, you get a wedge of the pie that big. Or if you're a country guy and you got the hat and the little deals on your shirt, and you only play a Telecaster with a big belt buckle, you're really get to get that wedge, and that's it. And it really came home to me one time, a few years later, after really immersing myself, and my practice would be work on something until I'm bored with it, work on country guitar licks until, okay, I'm sick of that stuff. I'm going to work on blues guitar and study some Mike Bloomfield stuff, or some, I don't know, BB King, whatever. Just in other words, just keep yourself interested and keep yourself moving forward. So one day I showed up, I got this call from a producer saying, with this country record we're doing, I just need you to bring a little Fender amp and a Telecaster. And in the LA studio scene, it's much different than New York or some of the other places. We have what's called cartage, which means you keep your gear in a warehouse and you call the cartage company to deliver it. And that includes 2 trunks of guitars, sometimes 3. I have a trunk of electrics that holds 12 electric guitars, and a trunk of acoustics that holds 10. And then a trunk of stuff like mandolins, banjos, dobros, those, oddball stuff, ukuleles. So he said, just bring a telly. And I said, you know what if it goes a different direction? Maybe you should pay for cartage. He goes, okay, go ahead. So I show up, and there is a guy there with a telly and a little Fender amp. Telecaster, for all you non-guitarists, that's the country guitar, right?
Oh yeah,
the number one country.
One of the few I know.
Pardon me?
I said it's one of the few I know as a drummer.
Yeah, telly. So anyway, I showed up, and there's a guy there with a cowboy hat and the cowboy boots and the shirt with the deals on it. And the way it went down was, we started this tune, and it was a little kind of countryish tune. And when we finished a take of it, the guy said, the producer said, I think it should lean a little bit more in the rock direction. So I put the telly down, got a Strat with a little bit of distortion, and and started to rock it a little more. And this guy kept his sound. Then he goes, God, this is great. I think it should get more rocking than that. So I put that away, got a Les Paul guitar, which is now getting into some serious power chord territory. We taped it again. We did it again. This guy plays the telly and the same sound and everything. And by the end, it turned into be a pretty hard hitting thing. And then we changed that and did an acoustic version. And this guy only had a Telecaster, so I pulled out an acoustic. Anyway, long story short, the next day, because it was a 2-day set of sessions, that guy wasn't invited back because he just could do one thing. He got that wedge of the pie. So by just getting into all kinds of music and being a fan of music and being you become what I like to call the well-listened craftsman, because I've been called to, sound exactly like ZZ Top. And, we need you to sound like ZZ Top. Show up at the session. I go, okay, I know. Billy Gibbons is the guitar player. He plays a Les Paul back pickup through sort of a little Fender Champ amp, the 50s style. He gets those pinch harmonics. He has the Texas shuffle, which feels much different than the Chicago shuffle. Got it. So by being a fan of ZZ Top and of Billy Gibbons, I can come in and nail it. And there's a certain amount of fun creativity to that too, that I really enjoy. But you're basically like a plumber in many ways, because a plumber is going to come in and look under your sink and go, well, I'm going to go out to the trunk. I'm going to get a wrench. I'm going to get a street elbow. I'm going to get a 3/4 inch cap. I'm going to, you know what I mean? I go to my trunks, open them up, pull out a guitar that's going to suit that job. So there's, like I said, there's a certain amount of creativity and sort of self-satisfaction. But, eventually with all that studio work, I really needed to start doing my own music and start, my childhood dream was to have a band and go out on tour and play. And that's eventually where I ended up,
So you mentioned like the Blinders in the 70s. Did you think you were ever, was that the aspiration? Like, what did your family think about you becoming a musician? Did you want to be a professional musician? Was this something that you just kept on working on and it just kept happening to you? How did it work?
Yeah, I really never had another job in my life except for when I bought a Les Paul as a 16-year-old and needed to make payments on it. And my mom and dad said, you should get a summer job and pay it off right now. So I became a box boy at the local market. And then, didn't ever really stop the practicing. And there was never really a plan B for me. I just went for it the whole time. And like I said, I've always made my living as a guitar player, except that one little summer, which is really lucky.
Yeah, no, totally. And
But my dad said, if you work hard, you will succeed. And I took that to the music world and said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work really hard at this and get to be the very best I can, so.
And you just loved it. And
yeah, all the time.
That was always the point.
And I'm still extremely inspired. Inspired. That was a good one. Yeah, I'm really inspired. I hear something on the radio or something on one of my albums, or somebody plays me something. I go, I got to know that.
What have you heard on the radio lately that maybe has piqued your interest?
Well, what sometimes happens to me is if I'm driving around and some song comes on that I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But some song comes on that I've always loved, but I don't know what it is. I'll learn it. I'll come home and say, what is that? Why do I love it? And what is the harmony doing? What's going on there?
Is this your guitar of the month, by the way?
This one isn't, but I don't know which one it's going to be this time.
Yeah, I guess it's a little early in the month.
Yeah, it's early in the month. That usually comes later. So I remember driving along and hearing "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road" by Elton John. Right. I came home and I'm listening and I'm going, okay, I get it. I don't have perfect pitch, but. I can hear all this while I'm driving. And for the musicians out there, it's the 2 chord to the 5 chord to the 1 chord to the 4 chord to the flat 7 to the 5 to the 1. But as I'm driving along, I hear him go, let's see, anyway, I couldn't hear. I go, where did he go? What was that chord change? Turns out it's the 4 minor to the 5 to the 1 in A flat. Right. So, you begin to see that a lot of the great songwriters like Paul Simon and Brian Wilson and Lennon and McCartney, especially McCartney, their sense of harmony was really, really strong, and they really knew what they were doing. So I that's something that is inspiring to me, is just harmony. And to ask yourself, especially you hear an old tune on the radio that you kind of grew up with, like Good Vibrations, I'm kind of going, what is that?
Absolutely.
And the way the sunlight plays upon it. So in other words, that's an inspiring thing, is just to hear stuff and try to analyze it and go, A, what is it? And B, what turns me on about it? Why do I like it? But when you say what's currently inspiring to me, the other night I went backstage at Derek Truck's Susan Tedeschi concert and met Derek for the first time. I've never met him, but I told him, man, I've been transcribing your slide licks for electric guitar without the slide. Some of the licks he'll do, like if we're in F, he'll go, it's with the slide. And I just try to get those little phrases down. He has so much expression in his playing, that he's currently a real source of inspiration, especially if I can translate it to the fingers, because I can play slide guitar, and I've done it on lots of records and TV shows and movie soundtracks. But you hear him and you go, man, I will never touch that. I'll never get to that level, because it's what he does. It's his thing, So
So yeah, I want to get into now, like your session work and kind of like how you did it. So I mean, I have to ask, how did you get into Supertramp? You started playing with them in
yeah, I
1970.
was doing a bunch of sessions around town, and I got this one call one day from a female vocalist, and I don't think I've ever seen her again. And this is in 1985, and it was at a studio I'd never even been to. And so we're working on her tracks, and the engineer was a British guy, and he and I kind of really vibed. I was getting good sounds with him, and he was digging what I was doing, and so we exchanged numbers. And I went home that day, just another session, right? Just another kind of a record date type session. And I went home that day, and I got a call that night from a guy named Norman Hall, but he was so British sounding, it sounded like Norman Hall. And he said, Supertramp's auditioning guitar players. We've heard 18 so far. Your name came up. Apparently he had talked to that engineer, and that guy said, what's going on? We're auditioning guitar. Oh, I heard today. They called me, and I went down the following morning. I was literally auditioning at 10 in the morning the next morning. So there was no YouTube, and there was no time to learn any of their tunes. And I didn't have any Supertramp records. So I went down the next morning, and I apologized. I said, sorry, guys, I just don't know any of your songs. And Rick Davies, who was the leader of the band, he goes, we don't want to play any of our bloody songs. Let's play the blues. So that's what we did. We played the blues, and they had me sing a few, and we just had a ball. It was really a fun thing. And when I was walking into audition, Buzzy Featon was walking out, and he's one of my favorites. I mean, he's an LA guitar player that he played in the Butterfield Blues Band for a while, and the Larson Featon Band, and a band called Full Moon. And I was at the time really a fan of his and transcribing a lot of his licks and stuff. So So anyway, long story short, they called me that night and said, you got the gig. Literally, like overnight, it changed my whole life because, and we started to tour. We rehearsed for a month, and that was really, we actually rehearsed for 6 weeks. It was hysterical because I'm a studio guy, right? I can read music and pick up stuff fast. I was only 29 at the time, I believe, but I still had that stuff going on. So we went to Rick's house for a meeting in his studio, and we kind of divided up the parts. You're going to sing this, you're going to play that, you have a guitar solo here. And so I went home, and in the next couple of weeks, I just learned the whole thing. I knew the show, memorized down, and
Yeah, 6 weeks is a long time. Like that's a great amount of rehearsal time for a show.
yeah. So what happened is then we get to A&M Records, and they hadn't been touring. They hadn't toured for a couple years. So I remember telling the bass player at the time, Doogie Thompson, the original bass player, I said, I think it's an F sharp. You're playing an F there. I think that's supposed to be an F sharp. And he goes, oh yeah, you're right. I think I kind of knew it better. And these guys, so we did 2 weeks of that. Then we moved to Zoetrope Studios, this huge soundstage where we did 4 more weeks of rehearsal, 6 days a week on the soundstage with the lights and stuff. So this is very old school, once they found out how badass some of us were, they never had to do that again. But anyway, I was kind of bored because I just had it down, and they would completely stop the rehearsal if the chip in a little drum somebody's supposed to hit is finger snaps when it should be hand claps. They'd stop the rehearsal, everybody take a break. We're going to send the drum roadie to Guitar Center and pick that up. It was hysterical. So I'm going, guys, why don't we use the time efficiently and work on background vocals? No, we got to get this right. And it was pretty funny. So all that rehearsal, the whole show, then we go to St. John's, Newfoundland, and rehearse another 3 or 4 days in a hockey stadium before we're going to play there for a few nights. And they had a gigantic set that had a huge curtain. I mean, we're talking thousands of yards of material. And the curtain opens, and I'm supposed to start the whole show with this B, the big B, power chord. And the curtain opens, 1, 2, 3, 4, nothing. And it's because I'd never seen 20,000 people in front of me. I'd been playing these little jazz gigs and club gigs with 18 to 30 people in the audience. So 20,000 people screaming, it was a trip. So once I got past that initial shock, then he recounted it and I hit it, and we're off. And I never looked back. I got this, So it was a big shock to a 29-year-old. So
Yeah, jazz musician, you just got to play a B.
Yeah. All I need is a B natural, with some hair on it, some power chords, kind of things.
So yeah, that must have been a big shock. Did you ever get like kind of freaked out? How were you kind of coping with that? Was it just like, okay, now I just got this? What was it for you?
I mean, that was the only moment that I ever kind of freaked out about giant audiences. And we played to, 170,000 a couple times, these giant festivals. There was one in France and one in Switzerland that did people as far as you could see to the next village, So, but I never got freaked out after that. Another interesting thing on that very first concert was, these British guys had this tradition that the first night of the first show, between the show and then coming back for the encore, they would decant a bottle of port wine through the cheesecloth thing into a decanter, and then everybody have a glass of port and toast. Now, I'm the kind of guy who's been playing at this local club in Santa Monica called At My Place. We got off stage, we walked to the stage door while they're applauding, and we turn right around. We don't even go backstage because if they stop clapping, we won't get the encore and we won't get to play our last song. So we call them cheap encores. We just turn around on our heels. Oh, they want us back? Okay, great. These guys, okay, you got to remember, it's a hockey stadium and the seats are metal, and the bleachers in there are metal. And it's like 20,000 people because, as you know, hockey in Canada, is a deal. So these guys, the audience is going, with their feet, they're just pounding and screaming and clapping. And meanwhile, backstage, it's like they're pouring this wine, this port wine. I'm kind of going, guys, hello, they want us back. They want us back. They go, we understand, no worries. So, then we all toast, and like a good 8 to 10 minutes go by, and they're still screaming. He goes, they'll wait. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know that until the lights go up, nobody's going anywhere. There's a chance the band might come back, obviously. Anyway, so we went back and played the encore, eventually. But that was like, I was so nervous, being the baby of the family, being the young guy.
Your heart's just beating. You're like,
yeah. Shouldn't we be back up there? I mean, they might leave. They're not going anywhere. Anyway, so.
Where do you think the best shows are most well received for, or maybe not best, but most fun shows for Supertramp were? Like, what country, what sort of area? Was there a place that you guys just loved?
I remember playing in Liverpool was insane. Places like Montreal. Try to think where it's like they're just out of control. Seattle was pretty great. I remember one time. But the Italians, we played in the arena in Verona, which is an old Roman thing. It's like a Colosseum, a little bit smaller. And I had taken a tour of that arena because my band plays in Italy a lot. We already did this year for 2.5 weeks. And anyway, I remember taking a tour of the arena, paying the guide, with a bunch of people to go view it. And then the following year, I'm playing in there. And that was amazing to see the moon rise between those Roman arches, and think, man, this has been a venue. This has been a gig for 2,000 years, so that's kind of cool.
History.
So, yeah.
So you always loved your time there. It was just smooth sailing for the most part.
Yeah. It's been great. Eventually, in later years, Supertramp started doing the private jet thing, which means we would hub out of a city. If you're playing the East Coast, you hub out of New York. If you're playing, or Chicago or something. If you're playing France, you hub out of Paris. And it's a little weird because when my band tours, once the gig is over, we're meeting the punters, we're meeting the fans and doing selfies and signing autographs on CDs and books and
what do you
videos.
Exactly.
Pardon me?
What do you mean by hub exactly?
What that means is so my band is going to the city and playing. Like we played in Seattle, stayed in Seattle. We played in Friday Harbor on a festival on San Juan Island, stayed there. So after the show, you get a little after show hang. You get to meet the people. With Supertramp, once we got into the last 3 years of it, the last 3 tours, it was a private jet, which means we stay in Paris, and we go at 4 p.m. We take a short limo drive to Bourget Airport, which is a little corporate airport. We get on a private jet, and we just fly 45 minutes or an hour to Marseille. We land at a small airport there. Another set of limos takes us backstage, play the show. Well, first do a sound check, then have a big dinner. And by the way, we just had a big lunch on the plane. Not that you need a big dinner too. And then after the show, I hand my last guitar to my tech, walk off the stage as my limo, me and the bass player, pulls up. And we head straight to the airport, sometimes with a police escort because there might be an ordinance. You can't fly after 11 o'clock. And we are literally at the airport before the people get to their cars. And we're back in Paris, or Munich, or Milan, or London, the cities we're hubbing out of. We're back in those places, having a beer having an $18 beer in the lobby. I mean, in the bar of the super expensive hotel. So anyway, it's a little different. That's called a runner, and a lot of bands do a runner. I went to see Steely Dan in Santa Barbara, and I'm friends with the musical director, guitar player John Harrington. I said, "Hey man, can I get backstage passes? Because Walter Becker plays my guitar, the LSL CV Special. And I would love to thank him because it's his main guitar. I'd love to say, and he goes, oh, Donald and Walter always do a runner. They won't be there, but you're welcome. Anyway, he did do a runner, but Donald Fagen was there, so I got to meet him. But so, and I turned into Chris Farley. I totally went blubber on him. I said the same things. He said the same thing to me that I say to fans that come up to me. Because I said, you guys played Bodhisattva tonight. That was cool, you know. And he goes, yeah, we like to mix it up. And that's what I say to people when they go, man, you guys played Chinatown tonight. I didn't know you did. Yeah, we like to mix it up. So
It's kind of
anyway.
a little, not to brush off it. Yeah, just
Yeah.
you're a
Yeah, exactly. So
jam. So I want to talk about some other people you've played with. I think I'm most curious to kind of hear, and if you actually met her, or if you just like did the session with somebody else. But with Dolly Parton, how was working with her?
yeah, we were doing her movie called, it was either 9 to 5 or Straight Talk. I don't remember which movie, but I had to meet her at a studio and record acoustic guitar and her. I think it was a pre-record for how they were going to pace the movie scene. I don't know how it worked, but she was going to sing this tune. I think that's what it was. I can't remember, but I do remember going to the studio and sitting in a chair with my acoustic, and she's standing about 4 feet in front of me. And she said, what are you looking at? You know, and I said, oh, sorry, Dolly, you know. And she goes, you know why Dolly's waist is so skinny? And I go, no. And she goes, because nothing grows in the shade, you know, because she's got those giant breasts. Anyway, it was funny. She's about 5 feet tall and, you know, this monster set of breasts. And I go, oh, sorry, Dolly. She had about 5 Dolly Parton jokes, too. I don't remember any more than that one.
And how was the session? How was it?
Great. She couldn't have been sweeter and nicer. And I'm not sure they actually used the track. I think it was just a pacing thing. You know, there's sometimes you do that and it's sort of a pre-record, and then you go back and record it later with the band. So
Kind of like a demo, but
yeah, a little demo thing for her vocal to get paced out right, how she wanted to do it. So that was a cool thing. And then I played on all the rest of the tracks on those movies, but she wasn't there for those. You know, they just did the tracks. Only that one time did I actually. I'm on those records, but yeah. And when I played for the Bee Gees, they were doing a record called Still Waters, and it was sad. I never got to meet him, and I'm a huge fan. I love the Bee Gees, and it was you know, too bad they weren't there. They were in Florida. We did this in LA at Sunset Sound. So
and that's kind of interesting to me. That what did they pull you in for? What does a band like that kind of pull in extra musicians for?
it's the producer who says, if they have like a touring band, say, he might say, your touring band's cool. We'll use them on a tune or two to make them, you know, keep them involved. But really, there's a better guy on guitar for this track, and I'm going to call this guy. Or there's a better bass player and drummer. So that's the producer's call. If they're trusting him to make the best tracks they can, that he can, you know, he's going to call his guys that he's used to. So, and it's funny because I only worked one session with that guy. That guy was named Raphael Sadig, I think his name was, and that producer. And we had done a record for, I can't remember her name. I think it was the singer from En Vogue. And she was, I know I probably have the record on my ego rack. So I could probably look it up. So
is that all stuff you've recorded on, or is that just
no, just a couple of rows of it.
Gotcha.
You know, so but there's obviously a lot more here.
Yeah. Wow.
I got a bunch of vinyl too. It's kind of how I learned to play, you know, listen to that vinyl and listen to those CDs. It's you know, just dropping the needle and trying it again and again until you get it, or recording it onto a cassette and backing it up and playing it. You know, that's a real big part of learning back in the day. Before there was tab or YouTube videos or anything, you know, we had to kind of do it by ear.
You had to actually learn it.
Yeah, exactly.
So just as we're talking about your studio, your office room, you have a lot of recording gear around there. Is it?
Well, I've got a little home studio, but all my records have been made in real studios.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go to Sunset Sound, Capitol Records. I want to go to Village Recorders. These what I call temples of tone, where I know that the room sounds great. And as far as a guitar goes, you know, they put a microphone on a guitar amp, and that's just one part of the sound that you really hear. So I really like it when my engineer, I mean, I make sure that if it's an important guitar part, like say a solo, I make sure that the engineer walks around the room and just listens to where that sound is blooming, you know, where it's really opening up and sounding great. And one engineer, I mean, he'll get out a ladder and climb up here and see if it's better high or by the ceiling or down here or in the corner. And then he puts the mic there. And then he sort of has to figure out how to time align it so that there's not a phase issue. Because as you know, with Pro Tools, there's waveforms, right? If this wave goes up, but the sound that's hitting the distant mic goes up later, it's going to be out of phase. So he's got to then time align it. But he does that until I just start to light up and really, really get into it. And then we're good to go. So yeah, so I've been doing it that. Now, I also record here. I can mic amplifiers, and I have this this digital thing called a Kemper, which has profiles of about 40 of my amps. And so I can say, you know, I think I'll use the Fender Showman on this track with the 57 microphone or with the, you know, UA 67 or something. So anyway, so
yeah, you have a lot of hardware back there as well. It's looks pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I got, let me show you this. Yeah, if it sounds good, I don't sell it. So
yeah,
I don't know if the light will be squirrely, but you see there's a couple of rows of pedals down under that window there.
Nice.
And that's only the ones that are in here. Out in the trunk in the garage, there's a bunch more, and I have 5 pedal boards.
Yeah, your garage is stacked.
Yeah, my garage is really full of gear. Yeah, so some of it's on its way from Seattle down to Santa Cruz, where we're playing on Sunday. So
November 11th.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, you mentioned to my buddy who I work on the podcast with that you played in at Moe's Alley in 1999.
Yeah, I did. It was really funny. I'll tell you, he told me to repeat this story.
Yeah.
He's at the time my record company was hiring this guy who was, I don't want to say his name, but he was really a bottom dweller music industry guy, right?
I know.
He lived above the DMV in Hollywood. And so when you went to his office, you go, well, where do you go to the bathroom? And he goes, oh, down the hall. Where do you take a shower? At my gym, you know. And we had a meeting in the morning, and of course the couch has got pillows and blankets on it, and he's behind his desk, you know, totally not showered yet, you know. So he was definitely a low-life dude. Good guy though, but he was extremely effective at tour promotion, you know. So when I went anywhere, he really got it going. He really got the, you know, it wasn't just Bait and Tackle Weekly that you had your picture on. It was, so we played Santa Cruz, and I made the cover of the whatever entertainment paper, you know, and I was also in the regular newspaper. So the free entertainment paper had me on it, and I was pick of the week in the other paper. And it was like a Tuesday. It was a weird night of the week. And I showed up, and the guy that ran the place said, "Who are you, man? Hey, we're packed. We're totally sold out. It's amazing." And I said, "Wow, great." And he said, I'm worried. I can't get another cocktail waitress. He was freaking out, you know. I said, "Hey, that's a good problem to have, you know." So anyway, we played. And when I went back there many years later, this would be the second time I played there, which was a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. He said, if you ever really wanted, it was okay. It wasn't sold out. I didn't have that kind of publicity that time. I don't think those papers existed anymore, probably, but I'd long lost touch with the bottom dweller guy too. But he said, if you ever really want to have a good crowd, play the Sunday blues brunch thing.
Mm.
So I don't know why they call it a blues brunch, because it starts at 3:30 in the afternoon. I would think you'd have had brunch by then.
Well, it's rock and roll brunch, I guess, you know.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what we're doing this Sunday. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. When do you get into Santa Cruz? Are you going to be there right at Sunday?
What we do is we play someplace in Carmel, a new venue called the Wine Bank, and it's Carmel, and they've got an outdoor stage. And I'm actually having my tour manager bring the PA, because we don't trust their PA system. You know, they were saying, yeah, we got some speakers, you know, we got a microphone. Oh, that will not do.
No.
This is an international touring rock band, you know, rock, blues, jazz, jam band. And we have to, if we're coming that far, we're going to sound good, you know. So
You know what's funny is yesterday I got a text message about, I think, exactly that, needing a sound guy for that, or somebody who has all the PAs and speakers. So in Carmel
oh,
Valley.
oh yeah, oh wow. Well, they need to know that we don't need that.
No, which is that's very funny. I got a text from my out
Yeah,
of nowhere.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hey, text him back and say it's covered,
all
you
right,
know,
I
because
will.
I sure hope that somebody doesn't show up with a bunch of gear, because we're trucking it up. And my tour manager has a PA company, so when he's not on tour with me, he's doing other PA gigs. So
Perfect. Well, there you
so
go. So I like to ask every artist, chef, musician, everybody who comes on the show the same question. What is your idea of success, either for yourself or kind of your general philosophy on it?
that's a great question, and I would have to say that on the level of the music side, there's the music side of it and the life side. On the life side, my idea of success is doing exactly what I want to do with my life, and a job that makes me real satisfied and real happy and righteously fulfilled, you know, and not making my family suffer. And my family is just a wife and a son. Now he's graduated from college. He's pretty much launched, right? So, but this entire time of, you know, of having a child and raising a kid and being married to a woman, you know, I never put them through the starving artist thing. That's my idea of success. I always made a good living. So that there's that. On the music side, my idea of success is not necessarily being the best guitar player I can. Well, it is. It's being the best musician I can be, but more importantly, being the best Carl Verheyen I can be. Because, you know, like I said earlier, I can never play the slide guitar as well as Sonny Landreth or Derek Trucks or Dwayne Allman. You know, I'll never be that good. On the other hand, they'll never be as good as me doing what I do, you know. So you just have to be the best of you that you can be. That's my idea of success, is constantly striving for that. And I'm a practicer. I mean, I'm a guy that finds my center as a person when I have that time by myself to dig into stuff, you know, whether it's the next gig, because I have a motto: I will not suck. And so if I look at the set list and I just make sure I really own all that stuff, and there's something I debrief too, like after a show the next day, I'll go, man, there's that one line in that song passing through and I screwed it up again. I've got to work on that. I'm going to play it for 5 minutes straight until it's just under my hands. You know what I mean? So I will not suck. So there's that kind of practicing, but there's also the exploration of new ideas and new music. And so for I think since about 1978, I've been keeping a lick book. And the lick book is here's a typical page. It looks like this. It's every musical idea that I come up with that sounds like me, I write it down in notes and I put the position above it and the fingers below it. And that's much hipper than tab, because I can notate things that tab cannot. I can notate various bends and position changes and everything. So anyway, I'm constantly exploring lines. You're familiar with Chick Corea, right?
Oh yeah.
So years and years ago, I think it was in the 70s even, I was reading a magazine called Contemporary Keyboard. And in that magazine, he said, the best of us are only truly improvising 30% of the time. The other 70%, we're stringing together ideas and lines we've already worked out and stringing them together. And then we might improvise here or there. But really, we're kind of bridging those lines we have. So that changed my life immediately. I just went, wow. You listen to something like Spain or Captain Marvel or one of his tunes, and you go, that guy can go forever on A minor 7th chord, right? He never repeats himself. So I said, I need to work some stuff out for A minor all over the guitar. I need lines. I need long lines, short lines, things that connect, position changing things, So I need to cover the whole guitar neck, the entire range of the instrument with lines in A minor. And then spice them up with jazz licks or blues licks or country licks, things that sort of define the ornamentation of the style. Like if I'm playing country music, I know there's the bluegrass side of it with the open strings, or there's the pedal steel side of it with a lot of bends. So I want to kind of incorporate those into my own lines, so that it's people hear me and go, yeah, he's playing country.
Okay, so you are playing September 11th at Moe's Alley. That is this weekend.
Yeah, it's this Sunday at 3:30 in the afternoon. So, and the cool thing about Moe's Alley, man, it sounds good in there.
That's my favorite sounding venue in town.
Wow, great.
Yeah, and they really treat the musicians well. Brian is a really incredible owner. So
yeah, he's the new guy, right? He's the new owner. Yeah.
Bought it during quarantine with the bartender that worked there forever.
Oh, cool. Great. Yeah, they have a good sound system, and I remember their tech guy that runs it is cool. And I'm bringing my big rig, which is 4 guitar amps and 2 4x12 cabinets. And
oh, that'll be cool.
And Dave Murata, my bass player of many, many years, he's doing, he's from Monterey. So we always get some Monterey people coming up to see us there. And yeah, I hope it gets enough publicity to fill it up. In the past, when Mo owned it, he said that's the day, that's the time and date to play, Sunday afternoon. So
yeah. I think it should be good. I think people definitely want that. And if they're doing the food with that, which I assume they would be, the food is excellent. The taco is incredible. Let's kind of open up the whatever else is going on for you. Any projects you want to talk about? You had an album called Sundial come out in 2021, correct? So this is the tour for that. Are you recording right now? Is there anything else?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I've done, I've pretty much written the next album, the Sundial Tour, which was last year. My bass player couldn't do it for health reasons, and John Mader, my drummer, was doing Hamilton in LA. And Hamilton, the play, he was getting paid like $1,250 a day. So I couldn't touch that. I go, look, you don't have. So I got Chad Wackerman on drums, who's a dear old friend of mine, and Alfonso Johnson, bass player from Weather Report and Santana, and just kind of put together this little super group. And we went out and did what I call the Sundial Tour. So this tour is really fun because one thing that Supertramp always said, Rick Davies said, he goes, it's too bad we need to do an album and then a tour, because the album becomes the demo for the tour. You play this, you work out the stuff, you record it, then you go out on the road and it just gets better and better. And even arrangements can change, and man, we should have recorded it that way. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking about 5 tunes that will be recorded later, maybe December or January. And I'm just playing them every night. And they're accessible tunes, so the people aren't really scratching their head, And we play the tunes that they came to hear as well. There's a handful of tunes that are, and some of the Sundial material. And, the other thing I'm doing, Zen, is I've kind of gotten inspired by the whole Bob Weir concept, or the Grateful Dead concept, which is you have the band knows 50 tunes. And since the band knows that many tunes, the set list doesn't have to be the same every night. We might start with the first two or three, but then the fourth tune can be slotted in a different one. And then the fifth tune can, I try to make sure tempos are different, feels are different. You don't want to do two tunes at the same tempo, two tunes with the same groove, two shuffles in a row or anything like that. And I try to make sure that the keys are different. We don't want to finish a tune in the key of A and then start another tune in A. Just give people musical variety. And so I'm trying to. We're then going to go on tour in Europe for 5 weeks, starting the 1st of October, and that'll be fun because those tours. We have fans that follow us around, or they'll catch a gig and then there'll be another gig 3 hours away. They'll come and see that. And so it's really fun to just change the set list. And then they start talking on Instagram and stuff. Hey, they played Place for Me tonight. Really? They didn't play out when I was there. I'm going to go see them in Belgium and see if they play it there. So you get that kind of excitement going. And I read a great article with Bob Weir where he's got a computer program that lists all the up-tempo tunes, all the ballads or slow tunes, this kind of feel, that kind of feel, and then relists them all according to key, starting key and ending key if there's a modulation. So he could go, okay, third tune, it needs to be a slow tune, let's see, and it can't be in the key of C. So let's go over here. Okay, key of D, slow, boom, and he can find that, and then slot that in. So the set list can really be different. That's a challenging but intriguing concept for me.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a neat program.
Yeah. Whatever that is, I got to figure it out. So anyway.
All right. Well, Carl Verheyen, thank you so much for being on the show. This was super fun to talk to you, and best of luck with the tour.
Great.
This has been Breaking North. We interview artists, creators, musicians, just talk about what they do, how they do it, where they came from, and we're always doing more. So, yeah, any last thoughts you want to let people know?
Well, I'd love to see them up if anybody's in the Santa Cruz area, I'd love to see you guys there. It'd be really fun to have the Moe's Alley gig sell out. And otherwise, we'll catch you down the road. Go to carlverheyen.com where you can get all 16 of my previous releases. I've got books, I've got DVDs, and hopefully I'll see you guys out there.